Yo, what's going on, guys? So, welcome to episode number 4 of Toxic Talks. We had a very interesting week last week. A lot went down, and we have a lot to look forward to. So, let's jump straight into it. Talk about what's happening with Throne and Liberty. So in the past week, we've had a ton of issues regarding Throne and Liberty. So we had the Thursday maintenance that was supposed to last 6.5 hours, and it lasted 28 hours. And if anybody uh, jumped in stream that day, we were not too happy with what happened. Basically, what ended up happening was the night before they put the update, or they were updating, I think, what was it, 3 hours before they should have. And that was the time I was planning on doing some stuff, so it messed it up, but I didn't really think too much of it. That night I was like, okay, well, we'll be back tomorrow, we'll get everything done, yada yada yada. I hopped on for stream, and well, it wasn't even ready then. I was like, oh, this can't be good. And then an hour later, the game came back online. I was like, okay, fucking finally, let's make sure we can do what we need to do, yada yada yada. We get on, we do our dailies, or we do our contracts, we do what we can in other stuff, and then we did a co-op dungeon, and it ended up being ended up being an issue. And um they I don't think they've said what the issue was, but I could almost guarantee it had something to do with them adding chests to trials, and then it messed up the co-ops because of that, and yada yada yada. But again, I can't be certain. Either way, it basically screwed up our entire day, which wasn't too fun. They ended up getting it fixed like way later in the night, and it wasn't too fun, to say the least. But they did end up giving some decent compensation. I think that they technically could have done more, but what we got was definitely a nice upgrade from what we've previously gotten. But even still, they somehow managed to mess up the chat system in the game. They have fixed it by the point of me making this video, so hopefully they don't break it again. But that basically caused people to not be able to coordinate open world dungeon runs, token burns, all that good stuff. You couldn't coordinate anything, and then when it came to field bosses, you couldn't get people in your group, and it was just a disaster. And so we've basically been trying to catch up on what we can. We did trials way earlier than we wanted to. We still need to do a token burn, but now that the chat's back up, we might end up doing that tonight. But we'll have to see how that goes. And then as it goes for this upcoming week, we got some exciting news coming out. The official announcement for Talandre. We were expecting it to come out with the Tico talks, but Tico talks was basically like, yeah, this is just the update for the update kind of thing. So it was a little bit funny. Um, but yeah, it was a bit of a yikes. Not too many happy gamers this past week. Hopefully, they will get a little bit happier in this upcoming week with the Talandre announcement. But it sort of brings me into my next point of there's a lot of problems with gaming at the moment that I've seen, and don't get me wrong, this isn't a new thing. It's just something that I guess I want to be talking about right now, because I mean, there's so many ways that you could make it better as a gamer. But more specifically, people complaining about nonsense and then putting games over it. So, um, at least in terms of Throne and Liberty, like I understand there's obviously reasons to complain about something, and obviously reasons to quit games. I'm not gonna be act like a hypocrite, like I haven't uh quit games and stuff like that, but I tend to try to give games the benefit of the doubt. Like, if you guys know me with New World, all that good stuff, you guys will know that I basically held out as long as I possibly could, and I do the same for pretty much any game. But basically, I've noticed a lot of people. I guess I can give it to you bluntly, bitching and complaining about things in a game that, like, it's like whatever. But the main topic that I noticed in Throne and Liberty is people complaining about PvP in the game. And don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people like PvP in games. I, for one, have always enjoyed PvP. I personally don't do it in this game, which sort of brings up my point is I don't understand why people classify Throne and Liberty as a PvP game when the PvP is just absolute dog shit. Like people when they think of ESO, I don't think they think of it as a PvP game. They think it's a PvE game more so than anything. And well, like that's the reason why I don't play PvP on this game is because I think it's absolute fucking dog shit. And um, I wouldn't even I wouldn't even want to try to enjoy it. It just seems like it's a very, very, very bad system, and it basically has a lot of bad individuals in it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not specifically calling anybody out, but I think and everyone and anyone can know how toxic PvP is in Throne and Liberty. So I just tend to not do it, but like it sort of goes to this whole thing in gaming where like one little problem and people think it's the end of the world like targeting in Throne and Liberty is really really terrible. It's terrible for PvP, it's terrible for PvE, and like don't get me wrong, like it should be fixed, but it's not something like hey, I'm going to quit a game over, you know? Like it just seems a little bit ridiculous, at least in my eyes. And this goes for basically every game, unless like the game is actually like shit. It it just doesn't make sense to me. Like I think Throne and Liberty is a very good game, but I think it's a good game when it comes to PvE. Like there's a lot of really decent aspects of it. PvP again, it's not good for PvP, and I don't know why people try to glaze Throne and Liberty PvP. Like New World didn't have such a way better combat system than any other MMO. Like don't get me wrong, I say it a lot, and I will constantly say it. New World did so many fucking things wrong. They still do so many fucking things wrong, and uh, if I'm being honest, they don't deserve to be a fucking development team. Uh, it's harsh. I know it's harsh, but the way that they treated their player base, we shouldn't have sympathy for developers uh, that fuck you over. If Apple did this, if Amazon did this, if Tesla did this, if any other company basically gave you a half baked product, and you wouldn't have sympathy for them. So I don't understand why we need to have sympathy for game developers. However, when it comes to Throne and Liberty, I think they do a lot of things right, and I think they're trying to change and make things for the better. Um, but again, it comes back to this whole point of like people need to realize the strengths and weaknesses of a game. If you're going to complain about a system and say, "Oh no, this is a PvP game. The PvP is good," but yada yada yada, it's like no. That's like the reasons why you give for they need to improve upon PvP is the reason why PvP is shit. So like people are like, okay, so targeting is bad. Well, targeting is bad in both. That's the reason why it's shit. For I guess for both. Like I won't disagree that targeting is a problem for either. And like I would like to see it overhauled, and they said they're doing that, but again, it's like whatever as it goes for like arena or guild versus guild or Zerg versus Zerg or whatever. People are like, well, like this needs to change, but like if it changed, PvP would be good. It's like, no, it'd still be shit. Like if you guys know anything about like New World, there was Zerg versus Zerg. There was the faction system, but there was Zerg versus Zerg, and I don't think anyone terribly enjoyed that. People liked Wars, but like Wars was like little pockets of like 5v5s, and then eventually it would like if one side was better than the other, they would just converge on like a group and like the problems that like basically the whole point of this, I know it's like a lot of tangents left and right, but like the whole point of this is like people complain thinking that something is good when it's not. When it's not like I just want the Throne and Liberty community to realize that PvP is shit in this game. Don't get me wrong, obviously they should improve it, but let's not like sugarcoat it like, oh, if they did this, it would be the best PvP game of all time. It's like no, it's not. It's like the way that the system is set up, it's a really terrible system because number one, it doesn't take skill also. Um to be good at PvP in this game, you could literally buy all arch boss stuff. And if someone has only like co-op dungeon stuff or open world dungeon stuff, like 9 out of 10 times the build is gonna basically determine a fight. So it like people need to stop glazing terrible design and being like, oh, like it's good, but if they just got rid of the system, it's like no, it'd basically be creating a new game at that point. But anyway, it's just something I've noticed, and I know it happens in basically every game. And I think what gamers need to realize is number one, the moral of the story. The best time ever in gaming was like from like 2010 to 2016 or something. Um, and I can tell you, actually, I'll bring it back a little. 2008 to 2016. We'll give it that period. I can tell you with great certainty, nobody was trying to act like a esports legend in like Halo or early Call of Duty. People were just trying to have fun. Don't get me wrong, people were trying to do the best they could, but it was never like, oh, I need to look up a guide on a build and yada yada yada. But now everyone nowadays they need to basically act like an esports player, or basically their whole worldview and their whole identity just breaks apart. But basically, I've been playing Throne casually, and I've been having, I want to say, the most fun I have been in such a long time, just playing a game so casually. Don't get me wrong, I still have a lot to do. I do play a lot of Throne, but that's just because the sheer amount of stuff that I need to do to keep up with at least the PVE aspect of it. But I've just been enjoying it. I've just been enjoying it. And for any gamer who's listening, you guys want to enjoy gaming again, trust me when I say this, at least for certain games, you don't need to always go try hard for certain games. Like obviously there's an aspect, or I should say an element of fun to try harding some games, but you don't need to do it always. Find a game that you can go casual, and trust me, you'll have a ton of fun. Now, as many of you guys know, I do not talk about politics. I do tend to watch things that on stream that are political, but I do not talk necessarily in a political sense. I let everyone have their own opinion. I tend to not try to like have their opinion seep into the stream just because it is a gaming stream. But we have been keeping up with all the things political. I think it is still important for people to keep up with things politically, but as in terms of, I guess I would say, what you guys believe to be the best, I think that's something that, at least in today's day and age, does not need to be shared or even contested, just because, like, everything has become political. But like I said, we have been watching some political things ever since the orange man Donald J. Trump got elected. And just a little thing on that. Again, we're not going to be talking politics, but like I've been saying on stream, we are in for a crazy 4 years, whether you love him, whether you hate him. I don't think anyone can deny that we're about to have the funniest, the most hectic, the absolute just craziest 4 years we will ever have. As well, Asmongold says, he's basically the content president. Again, whether you agree with him, whether you disagree with him, whether you love him, whether you hate him, whether you think he's the Antichrist, whether you think he's a messenger sent by God, like it's just, by the way, that's just an analogy for saying if you think he's really, really good or really, really bad, just so you're aware. I also don't bring religion, but just for the sake of the analogy, like I've been just watching all the press releases and all the reactions from Asmongold, and oh my god, is it just absolutely fucking the craziest, the fucking funniest, and just the wildest. And but I think by the time this video comes out, it'll basically be his first 6 days in office, or back in office, I should say. Oh boy, oh boy. I won't even deny. I won't even deny it. I'm not like I'm not again. I'm not gonna get into political things, but I'm probably gonna milk the shit out of all this stuff because like right now there's just too many crazy things happening. I'm not gonna tell you. By the way, I'm not gonna tell you how you should formulate your own opinions. That's for you. That's for you. I'm just here to have a laugh, have a smile. Don't get me wrong. We want to forget about what's happening in the world as gamers, but if we can have a laugh at someone else's expense, if you love them, if you hate them, it's the funniest thing. And I think I'll leave it at this, at least on the political spectrum. I watched a TikTok clip recently, I believe, of I think it was the 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 press conference with the AI guys, and there was an Asian man there, and it was the funniest thing because this was like a side view of it, wasn't like the straight on view. The Asian man wasn't as tall in stature, so they had a pull out whatever you call it, like a stand for the man to appear taller. And you see Trump's reaction where he turns to the cameras and he starts laughing, and it's just like, oh my fucking god, oh my fucking god, this is what's gonna be the next 4 years of our lives. But I hope at the bare minimum, again, if you love him, if you hate him, at least we can have a laugh at his expense, or if you're on his side at others' expenses. Either way, I don't really give a shit. I'm just here to, I guess, have a good time and try to get through the next 4 years as best as we possibly can. So, but that's basically all I had in mind to talk about. We've had a crazy week. Um, In fact, we've had a crazy first month of January. It's been an interesting one, and I am doing my absolute best to try and get through, try and give you guys the content. But and I know a lot of people that don't have too much sympathy for content creators, but I will say this: we are just like you. We do well, at least in my case, I try to treat this as a real normal, like, and then maybe not 9 to 5 job, but I do 8 hours. So technically it's 11 to 7 for me. And then I also do 6 days a week. So, and I don't get overtime, but, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to give you guys the best content I possibly can. So it is a struggle. It is a struggle, but, it is something I love to do. Doesn't make it any easier, but that's where we are. But other than that, that is all I have for you guys. So I hope each and every one of you guys has a wonderful day. And as always, take care. And I'll talk to you guys later.